So in this final video, we're going to be looking at some of the filters in the Render, Sharpen, and Stylize submenus. Alrighty, so you guys know the drill. Let's go ahead and pull myself up here real quick. We need to make some copies, so let me hit Command J a couple times. And definitely want to make sure we are doing smart objects, convert to smart object, convert to smart object, and convert to smart object. Alright. So let's take this first one and let's go up here to filter and we're going to go to render. So render basically means it's creating something. So some of these actually are better to be used on a blank layer. Let me show you what I mean. So let's just go ahead and with this for now. And I'm going to go to lens flare. Lens flare has become pretty popular. So what you can see here, and I wish I could make this bigger for you guys. But so here I have a lens flare effect, and you can see as I click and drag that it's moving the flare around. Now lens flares when you're actually clicking images is caused by a light coming into the lens, from a direct light coming into the lens, and it creates this flare, and depending on the lens it's going to create a different type of flare, and that's why we have these different type of lens types. They'll create different types of lens flares. So this is 50 to 300 millimeter zoom lens. This is a 35, so it has more of a little like star shape. 105 prime, movie prime, and that's kind of like what's really popular with the 80s stuff right now. So this is all fun. I mean, we can move it around our image, we can put it exactly wherever we want, and then we can click OK, and there it is. Now, another way to go about this, though, is let's go ahead and turn this off. I'm going to make a new layer down here by hitting the plus sign, and I'm going to fill it with black. So you could do this a couple different ways. You can do Shift Delete. You can also go to Edit and then Fill, and you'll get this fill box here. And I'm going to go ahead and click black, hit OK. All right, so now let's go to Filter, Stylize. Render, and Lens Flare. Okay, we have our lens flare here, Coolio. Let's go ahead and hit OK. So now we have this here, but if we come up here, we can change the blending mode, and let's change it to screen. So with screen, it's only going to be showing us the brightest areas. So you can see that the black is actually gone, and now I can click and drag and move this wherever I want. So this could be a bit more helpful if you wanted to have it on its own separate layer. This way you can also add another layer mask to it. I mean, this has a layer mask down here too, but having it on its own separate layer does give you a little bit more flexibility on where you want it to go. So pretty fun. All right, moving on. So let's go ahead and go to this layer, and let's come back up here to look at Sharpen. So Sharpen is what it sounds like. You're making the image sharper. This is something that is used more for printing, actually printing out images. So, and we're going to talk about printing a little bit later this semester, but might as well just look at these, right? So we have a bunch of different options. Unsharp mask is most people's go-to, and of course it sounds counterintuitive. Unsharp mask. There's some things in Photoshop that come from back in the darkroom, the film photography days, and this is one of them. This is the type of mask you would create in the darkroom to make an image look sharper. So let's go ahead and click here. And the thing with digital images is that most cameras have this filter built into them. It kind of makes an image a little soft. So especially when you go to print something out, you do need to sharpen it a little bit. Now, when it comes to graphics like text, it's not really going to be an issue. I'm talking about images that are coming out of a camera. That's usually when you need to sharpen. So you can take the amount up, the radius. You can see that it's getting a lot sharper looking, and the radius is how many pixels it's actually affecting. And then we have threshold, which works on different things. I usually leave this at about 0. For most of the time, I don't go this crazy on things, but it really just kind of depends on what you're trying to communicate. Is it supposed to have a more natural look, or do you want it to be super intense? So we can make things, you know, super intense if we need to. Let's go ahead and click OK. Whew, that's sharp. All right, moving on to the next one. All right, and finally we have Stylize. So there's quite a few things here. Some can just be used on their own. Some you do have to like put it on top of another layer and then change the blending mode. Emboss is one of those. So let's just look at it really quick. So you can see that it's creating like it's this weird gray thing going on. Like, why would you want to do that? Well, emboss is a process of, if you've ever seen like a piece of paper with something embossed where it's sticking up out of the paper slightly, that's what this is trying to mimic, basically. So it creates a darker shadow area and a lighter highlight area to give that three-dimensional type of feeling. So let's go ahead and take this up. Let's click OK. It really doesn't look that great, right? So what we need to do is come back up here to our blending modes. Let's move myself over here. Blending modes, and let's try overlay. All right, and so you can see that now we're having some areas where it's looking a little bit more three-dimensional because we've added a highlight and a shadow to it. So let me turn this off and on so you can see that, and let's even maybe just move it over just a bit. And this is, you know, these filters, it kind of depends on the image and the effect you're going for, how they're really going to work. I think that works out the best. So now it's kind of giving you a little bit more of a three-dimensional area on the sharpest part of the images. Pretty cool stuff, right? Okay, and you know what? Should we just stop there? Let's look at one more. Let's look at one more. So there is a really cool oil paint filter in here. Now, I find with the oil paint filters, it's a good starting point, but to really pull it off well, you do have to do some custom brush work. Just an FYI, but it is fun to play with, so I encourage you. Play along. Let's go with wind. Wind is fun. So, oh, and we're on this one here, so let's go ahead and make one more. Let's turn this off. Right click, convert to smart object. Okay. Filter, stylize, wind. Here we go. All right. So with wind, it creates kind of like this wind look, right? So you can choose the different things. We have wind, blast, stagger. Now what I've found is this actually works and looks pretty cool with the glitch style project that you just did. So adding this can add a whole nother dimension of glitch, and this actually, so the one that you did was like a TV glitch. This is more of like a digital glitch. But yeah, it could be really fun to add this to stuff. And unfortunately there's only two directions on here, left or right, but I mean you could turn the image, right? So and we don't have a lot of options. It's just one or the other, and that's it. Now you can keep doing these, so let's go ahead and do, I don't know, let's say stagger looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and go okay with that. And now if you remember, so right up here at the top of the filter menu we now have wind, and that's going to apply the exact same effect again with the exact same settings. So I'm going to go ahead and click it again and okay, and it did it even more, and you can just keep doing this as much as your little heart desires and it'll keep on going. So yeah, you can make some pretty interesting things, right? Okay, so we just went over a whole lot of information, and I am definitely not expecting you to memorize what every single one of these things does, okay? You're gonna find that there's all kinds of different uses for these filters, from just playing around to some more practical applications. I just want you guys to kind of have an introduction to all of these and just kind of think about what the possibilities are. So in this week, you're gonna get to play with some of these filters for one of your assignments. All right, so that's my introduction to filters in Photoshop.